Good morning. Service will begin in about 5 minutes as always, but we're singing 2 new hymns today. So I wanted to take an opportunity to let you run through them before the service so that when we get to them in the service, you feel a little bit more comfortable. They feel a little more familiar to you. And anybody out there who can hear me who's not yet in the auditorium, you're welcome to come in any time. And we're going to start with the very first hymn in our order of service, number 194 in the gray hymnal. And while you flip to that, I'll tell you that it is a Chinese folk melody, and it sounds like it. It's a what we call the pentatonic scale. And once you hear it, you sort of are able to navigate it very easily, but it does take a couple of tries, so I think it's a good idea that we do it in advance. Linda, would you play the melody through all the way for us once? right, let's give it a try with the first verse words. Here we go. Faith is a forest in which doubts play and hide. Insight can hear the still small voice deep inside. Web of life, may this thread I weave, strength and commitment to all I believe. Vision be my guide as I seek thy way. Lead me into this tender day. Speak through me in all I do and say. Quite good. All right. So the other new one is in the turquoise hymnal. And I was reprimanded by someone who had served on the hymn committee. This is not teal, they said. This is turquoise. You can call it whatever you want. All right, so this is called I Know I Can, and it's in the style of an African-American gospel song. And so you can sing it with that spirit, but first let's learn the notes. So, Linda, one more time, the melody. Sing this, the first verse. Though days be dark with storms and burdens weigh my heart, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can feel all right. So that actually has 5 verses. The other 3 are on the second page at the bottom. But by then, you'll know the melody well enough. You won't even need to look at it. Thank you all so much. Looking forward to a good service on resilience. And let's ring the gong and go for it.
I don't know the name of that song, but the tune certainly rings a bell. That musical introduction is our way of saying good morning and welcome to another Sunday here at First Unitarian Society, where independent thinkers gather in a safe, nurturing, and musical environment to explore issues of social, spiritual, and ethical significance as we try to make a difference in this world. I'm Steve Goldberg, a proud, charming member of this congregation, and I want all of you to know I voted. But don't worry, I'll vote again on Tuesday. And I also want you to know that if this is your first time at First Unitarian Society, I think you'll find it's a special place. And we would like to extend a special welcome to you and invite you to join us in our fellowship hour right after the service. And speaking of the service, as most of you know, this is the perfect time to silence those pesky electronic devices that you just will not need for the next hour. Because for the next hour, you'll be enjoying a wonderful service that will touch your heart, stir your spirit, and trigger one or two new thoughts. In a moment, you'll have a chance to rise and sing our in-gathering hymn, but before we do that, I invite you to join in a moment of centering silence so we can all be present with each other this morning. We're glad you're here.
please remain up for our opening words and lighting of the chalice. As the chill winds blast the last autumn leaves from the trees, we gather with new purpose.
In each other's company, we find warmth against the approach of winter's cold.
We look to the bounty of harvest to sustain us while the earth sleeps, and we attend again to the wider circles of relationship, reminding us of the connections on which we depend.
In each face, some softening with age, some blooming into maturity, we see the human story revealed, the journey we each walk from mystery to mystery. Mark Ward's words continue in our chalice lighting, printed in your order of service as together we say, there is cause for gratitude for the love we share, even if imperfect and not always fully realized. Each day of our journeys, we are given new opportunities to accept and to give love. I invite you to turn to each other and exchange a warm greeting.
Warm greeting. Thank you, Steve.
Good morning.
Thank you for your music this morning.
I know, how unusual. Good morning. Good morning. Glad you're here.
Come, yeah. I am.
Glad
For 2
you're
years.
here.
Hi.
Scott, did I call you Scott?
Yes.
Oh, good. So I had like this, like, oh my God, I said the wrong
Good
thing.
morning. Thank you for
No,
your
I knew you were
music.
Scott, but I thought,
Good
like,
morning.
I had this moment where I thought I had a brain, but I called you Kelly. I always confuse you. So. We invite anyone who wants to come up to share our story time. We'd love to have you join us up here.
Find a seat. Welcome. Hello, hello. Hi.
Hello, everyone. We are really glad you're here. We are exploring the ways that change asks us to continue to grow and find new ways to be strong. And so this story is, I think, a very interesting way of exploring how we do that. It is entitled A Happy Hat by Cecil Kim, and we have the illustrations projected and some other wonderful things that we'll share. I am a hat. I am worn out here and there. I have a few holes and even a few weeds sticking out, but I am still very much a hat, a very happy hat. I have lots of stories to tell. A long time ago, the most popular hat maker in the city made me, a shiny black silk hat decorated with peacock feathers. Lots of fashionable gentlemen wanted a hat like me. My first owner was a groom with many dreams. I fit wonderfully on his head. His wedding was held on a dazzling spring day. The bride wore a beautiful white dress. The air was filled with the sounds of guests clapping and laughing. Every minute of that day was full of hope and good wishes, like a flower starting to blossom. I felt glad and content, filled with hope. I felt special. Sometime later, I went to a secondhand store for sale. I wondered if I was too old. I wondered if I was not interesting anymore. I wondered if I was of use to anyone. But I am a hat, a little worn with a hole or two, but still I am a hat, a special hat. My next owner was a magician. He pulled pigeons from me, made roses bloom and snowflakes fall. Children kept their bright eyes focused on me, holding their breath. Dogs sniffed the air for clues. Parents winked knowingly. I felt lucky and alive, full of curiosity. I felt wonderful. Time went on. I was sold to a street musician. I sat upside down on the cold pavement. People threw coins into me as the musicians played violin. Cats meowed, children danced and giggled all around me. The coins I held fed the musician's hungry family. I felt helpful and wonderful, filled with generosity. I felt joyful.
And then one day, woof, woof, a stray dog grabbed me and took off running. I wondered where he was taking me. I wondered what would happen next. And I wondered if I would be lost forever. That is how I ended up in these woods. I was alone in the woods. I wondered what I would do next. I wondered when I would become someone's hat again. But whether I felt lonely or confused, I remembered when the rain and wind pass, I might see a rainbow. When night is over, I will see the sunrise. When winter is over, spring will arrive. Whoosh! I heard the flapping of wings. Something was approaching. A mother bird settled on my brim. All day long, she brought grass and soil and cotton in her mouth to build a nest inside of me. Her devotion, her love, her warmth, I felt like a treasure filled with happiness. I felt valuable. Now I am waiting for my next owner. Will it be 1, 2, or 3 baby birds? Their mother's love overflows in me. I am filled with wonder, generosity, and courage. I am the happiest hat in the world. Would you like to be a hat like that? No?
Yeah.
This next, you might get sat on by a bird. You might have birds growing in you if you were a hat like that. Yeah. This next page is something you could do at home with your grown-ups, where it says, "The hat was left in the woods. What is the hat thinking?" What do you think the hat might be thinking in the woods? Yeah. Good grief. What else might it be thinking? I don't like dogs. Does it have any feelings? Say that again. Probably. What feelings might it be having? A little sad? Yeah.
Happy like it keeps saying.
Happy, like it keeps saying. It's feeling courageous and valuable.
Love.
And loved, yes. So many feelings and so many thoughts. And you can take this book from your library if you want to talk about it with your grown-ups at home. And for now, we're going to sing you to your classes with hymn number 1012, When I Am Frightened.
See you after the service. Thanks for the story today. You're very welcome. Have fun. Good luck. When I am frightened, will you?
When I'm uncertain, will you hold my hand?
Our reading today is attributed to the Hopi elders, entitled Prophecy. You have been telling people that this is the 11th hour. Now, you must go back and tell the people that this is the hour, and there are things to be considered. Where are you living? What are you doing? What are your relationships? Are you in right relation? Where is your water? Know your garden. It is time to speak your truth, create your community, be good to each other, and do not look outside yourself for your leader.
Then he clasped his hands together, smiled, and said, "This could be a good time. There is a river flowing now very fast, and it is so great and swift that there are those who will be afraid. They will try to hold on to the shore. They will feel they are being torn apart and will suffer greatly. No, the river has its destination. The elders say we must let go of the shore, push off into the middle of the river, keep our eyes open, our heads above water. And I say, see who is there with you and celebrate. At this time in history, we are to take nothing personally, least of all ourselves. For the moment we do, our spiritual growth and journey come to a halt. The time of the one wolf is over. Gather yourselves. Banish the word struggle from your attitude and your vocabulary. All that we do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration. We are the ones we've waited for. Here ends the reading.
As when
Over the last few months, as we have introduced a new monthly theme, we have done so in a more team-styled approach. And in general, we have been experimenting with all of our worship services having, at least behind the scenes, a very collaborative style. And today we try yet a different approach to introducing our new theme of resilience. I hope one that sort of models the essence of what we're trying to explore. We wanted to make this introduction one that was a little more conversational and invite you in, at least in your own thoughts, into that conversation with us. And so we thought about resilience, and we thought about a couple of the definitions. The power or ability to return to an original form after being bent, compressed, or stretched, or the ability to recover from illness or depression or hardship or anxiety. Some of the synonyms like elasticity, flexibility, buoyancy, adaptability. And then we looked at a set of questions, and we chose some questions that spoke to each of us in our own essential work around our resilience. And so we have thought a little bit about that, and we will dialogue a little bit about our answers to that question and invite you to think about in your own mind and heart what it is that resilience is saying and asking of you. So, in that spirit, Karen, tell me,
Yes,
how
Doug?
resilient are you when it comes to anger?
Anger. I thought that was going to be an easy question to explore because we certainly need to be resilient when it comes to our anger. And so I thought, well, first I need to get in touch with my anger. And I thought back to when I was a kid, and I realized, oh, I was the youngest of three. I hated it when my sisters were angry with each other. I would run and hide. I hated how it felt in my body, and actually I still hate that feeling of anger that I get when it comes into my body. And because I wasn't exactly sure that I had experienced anger since I was a kid, I checked in with my wife. And she said, yes, indeed, you have anger. And apparently I can express it too. So thankfully, I was able to take that information and go do some more research. I went and looked at an Enneagram book, a book called The Wisdom of the Enneagram. I happen to be a 1 on the Enneagram, which is sometimes called the teacher or the activist, the moralist, the perfectionist, the organizer, or I call it the reformer. And it said this: ironically, 1s are not always aware of their anger. They seldom experience anger as anger because their superego generally prohibits them from being, quote, too emotional. To be angry is to be out of control, to be less than perfect. So 1s often deny their anger through clenched teeth, saying, I'm not angry, I'm just trying to get it right. So you all now know something about me. It also said in the book, anger in itself is not a bad thing, which of course I knew for years. It's one of the many emotions that we have. The book continues, it is what arises naturally when there is something around us that we do not like or want in our lives. Anger, when fully experienced and not acted out or suppressed or swallowed, is instantaneous and short-lived. When we allow our anger without resisting it, it usually arises like a wave and passes through us within a minute. 1s can grow enormously by learning to feel their anger without attempting to suppress it or justify it. Talking openly about their anger with significant others can be very healing for 1s and a positive step in learning to process their resentments. So they kind of got me pegged on that one, Doug.
I was going to say busted.
Yeah,
That's pretty much
yeah. So I thought back, okay, so when was I feeling angry? Oh, yes. And how did I move through that, or how did it move through me? Certainly, I felt anger in high school when I was part of a Youth for a Nuclear Freeze group. And of course, military spending is angering. Or seeing the gender roles in my high school. Just get me going. Still, apparently.
Yeah.
And then I also was thinking about how when the curriculum that I was being taught many decades ago back in high school felt so whitewashed. I was only learning the perspective of white European immigrants or settlers or invaders. And it was when I read this short story, somehow they got into my curriculum, a James Baldwin short story called Sonny's Blues. And that opened my eyes to a way of life and an experience that I had never even imagined. And it made me hungry for more. And because of that anger at being denied that information and that education, I took that anger and made sure I got it when I went to college. And I took as many African American studies, literature, music courses as I could, and ended up getting an African American studies minor in college. But so it just made me think about when we can use our anger to fuel us to go in a new direction or to fuel us to get what we want out of life. That seems relevant to the sort of resiliency I want my anger to lead me towards and to help me in my life.
It seems anger is especially important for us to be thinking about in this current time.
Well, yes,
there's a lot of anger going
you know,
around.
and I mean, back in high school, I felt anger, and really now, I am angry practically all the time if I let it stay with me. Just reading the headlines gets me angry, and the question is, now what, or what to do with that anger once I'm noticing it, and that's something I'm really trying to do more of. It's like, oh yeah, here it comes. I'm noticing, now what? So that's my take on anger and resiliency. Here's a question for you, Doug.
Okay.
How resilient are you when it comes to forgiveness?
I chose this question because both in my own life, just as a regular human being and as the weird human being that every minister is in their own way, forgiveness has been an essential part of the journey for me. Certainly in my own life and thinking about my relationship of both being able to ask for forgiveness, receive forgiveness, forgive myself, but also in the ongoing struggle to forgive other people when I've had a difficult interaction. But over and over again, as a minister, it has been an especially powerful and important spiritual practice for me. When I started ministry, I was in my 20s, and I came out of theological school and went to my first congregation. And I looked at their order of service, and they were doing it all wrong. I just knew from my theological school training how worship should go, so I just changed the order of service. And I knew that they would be so grateful for my wisdom and bringing my learning to them. And I was sincerely shocked that about 90% of the congregation hated me that Sunday and were furious that I made those changes. And it was actually only much later that I realized how powerful that choice had been on my part. And it took me a long time to sort of begin to move into, there are times when the congregation is upset with me, that it isn't about me. And there are times where I actually have messed up. And to be able to really honestly discern the difference between the two of them, but either way, authentically to be in relationship with the congregation as we work through that place of difficulty has been really important. I have become much better at having people be mad at me by being a minister. It happens pretty much every day in my ministry. But what I am not as good at, and has still taken a lot of work for me, is when I am mad or disappointed with you. And that happens quite a bit as well. And the thing is that either way, I think that it points to an important interplay between disappointment, grace, and expectation. Over and over again, at least in my own practice, I've had to step back when I am disappointed or angry with someone and think about the expectations that I placed on them. And my first question, more and more, has become, did I have any right to expect that of that person or those people in the first place? And by turning to that sense of being able to own how often it is my very own placement of expectation on others that creates that deep disappointment, I do some important work right from the front end. But even when I realize that we have been out of right relationship, I am called over and over again to find a sort of graceful way for us to work together. And in that work, we actually do a lot more good than just finding a way to get over being disappointed or angry with each other. John O'Donohue wrote that when you forgive, some deeper and divine generosity takes you over. And when you cannot forgive, you are a prisoner to the hurt that is done to you. I realized that if we are trying to access our resilience as individuals or as a community, we cannot find that resilience as powerfully when we are in that prison cell. And so by doing the important work of seeking forgiveness, offering forgiveness, looking at our expectations, being people that offer a deep and sincere grace to each other, we are also strengthening the ties that bind and our power to stand up to the complexities of the world. So I'm grateful and always challenged by my work around forgiveness. And so the third question, which is, what does a resilient faith mean to you, has a lot to do with how resilience actually got up in front of us as a theme in the first place. Back this summer when the worship team got together, we were looking at November, and we realized that November would include a midterm election. And we knew that whatever happens in the next few days, much will be asked of us. And many of my colleagues have spoken about, since the last big election in 2016, their congregations have struggled mightily with a sense of hopelessness and depression, almost every day feeling dispirited about what happens. And so we wanted to explore together how this place might help us re-encounter and strengthen our sense of resilience. And so I actually have thought about, in the next couple of services, my answer in what I want to talk with you about. I think one of the most powerful ways that we embolden ourselves and find our resilience is by acknowledging that we come together as a diverse community. And worship and religious education week after week also ask us to lean into the places of common ground and deep unity. And in those places to find strength as well as in the individual gifts that we bring. So one of the places I believe that we do that resilient work most meaningfully is in worship. And next week, I'll explore with you some of why I think that's true and what we can do to help foster that even more meaningfully. The other way is that I think this is a space where we can encourage each other to do the practice, the spiritual work, to continue to find our inner and outer strength. And so I will explore the next week, what are some practices that help us find within ourselves and around ourselves and in each other that deeper sense of the ability to return, find our shape, our sense of self, even when difficult things happen. So for me, it is in the way that we explore our deeper unity and our common ground and the practices that help us connect that I believe our faith helps us with resilience. What about for you?
I have to echo much of what you're exploring. I tend to think of my faith as a process, an ongoing practice that involves those spiritual practices you touched on. As an introvert, I have to make sure I have enough self-time so I can recharge, and that might be through making art or going for a bike ride or walking along the lake or doing my prayer and meditations. And then also, that would not be enough just to do that. I also need community. I need time together to worship. And I speak or wrote about this a little bit in the November newsletter, where I talk about worship as the downbeat to my week. It is a way where I feel comforted. There's a ritual and a habit to it that assures me, oh yes, this is going on, and I am here, and I am not alone. And that also is part of what makes my faith the resilient UU faith that I'm striving for and practicing. And as I'm doing those practices these days, I'm coming up against these questions or this, maybe an aspiration that is coming to me in the word trust. To trust in my faith means to trust in myself, to trust that I am up to this task of ministry, to trust that wherever I am on my journey of ministry, it's exactly where I need to be. But also to trust in other people, to trust in my colleagues. Reverend Kelly is a great mentor for me, and to trust you to do something crazy like this that has been a big leap of faith. And then to trust in the congregation, to be open-hearted and open-minded, to explore together things we might not be exploring other ways. At a time where we really need the resilience, it seems so important. And for me, there's an even larger trust, and to trust in the universe, and to trust in that which I can't even name or imagine, to trust things beyond this room, that I am such a tiny part of this large experience, and to trust that it will be okay because we are together, and that is a good thing.
It's an essential thing. So how about for you? How are you doing in your journey in resilience? How is anger either part of how you find that resilience, or what is it doing that maybe is removing some of the energy that you need to find yourself again? How about forgiveness? How is that working in your life and helping you find deeper strength? And how is this place and your relationship with each other, how is it a part of that important journey towards resilience? We will continue to explore that in our conversations throughout this month and beyond. May we do that meaningful, powerful work together. So week after week, we practice resilience in a variety of ways. One of the ways that every Sunday reminds us is in the practice of thinking about stewardship, the ways that we look at all of the resources that we have been given, look at the world and what it is asking of us now, and in right relationship to decide what generosity is asking of us. So this week, as we get ready to receive our offering, we are reminded that we have that opportunity to be generous beyond ourselves. Our 50/50 outreach recipient this week is Community Immigration Law Center. There's more information about their mission and their work in your order of service. As we give and receive our morning offering, may a spirit of generosity and connection inspire us all.
to give thanks for today, including the beautiful gift of music, the generosity of your treasure, the contributions of your time and talent. Today, we want to give special recognition to those who helped make this collaborative service possible, including our sound operator, Mark Schultz, our greeter, Elizabeth Barrett, our lay minister, Lois Evenson. Dorrit Bergen is helping at the welcome and information table. And then in the coffee ministry area, we have Trudy Carlson and Jeannie Hills. I have a special announcement to let you know that this Wednesday, the November 7th, from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m., we will be having a post-election gathering here in this space to have candles, song, and reflection, whatever the election results may be. So please feel free to join us, and everyone is invited. And in that note, I will invite Doug and Lois up.
Every week, in the cares of the congregation, we have a chance to move into the power of realizing that we each bring joys and sorrows with us into this space. Sometimes they are spoken and sometimes not. But we together practice resilience in the ways that we support each other in care, and most of all, that we remember. And so as we move into this time of All Souls, as is a tradition in this congregation, I'm happy that Lois Evenson is here to read the names of those in our congregation who have died over the last year. May we hold them in the power of remembrance as we speak their names and remember their spirit now.
William Wortman. William Wortman. Closer. William Wortman. Pete Dorner. Barbara Nodine. Karen Richardson. Mary Mickey Udall. Greg Erickson. Frank Springer. Bob Dott. Nancy Dott. Edwin Vidays. Paul Mattioni. Phil Carey. Beverly McKelvey. June Spencer. The Reverend Max Gabler. Harriet Gorski. Lowell Hokin. Norma Denner. Homer, Elaine Naughton, Kirsten Carlson.
Each remembered, each held in our love, each alive in how their spirit works in us. They join with the other joys and sorrows that are part of our shared life. May it call us to be more fully part of the web of life and connected to all that is. We are grateful for the miracle of that life that we share and our hope in the power to care, to love, to remember. So may it be. Amen. Amen. And blessed be. Thank you, guys. And now I invite us to rise in all the ways that we do as we sing together our closing hymn, number 1015, I Know I Can Go On.
Troubles wait at every turn. I know I can go on. When sorrow leaves my soul and burdens make me strong. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. My sister in my heart, my brother in my soul. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. And though the journey is long, the destination is near. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. So brothers, take my hand. Sisters, sing my song. When hope awaits at every turn, I know we will go on.
And now, as you go forth into this complicated world, may you find from within your spirit that place of deep resilience. And when you cannot find it, may you find it in the power of community. We extinguish this light, but not the light of wisdom, not the fire of our commitment to justice, not the warmth of love. These remain in you until we gather in this place again. Before we move on to our day, may we take a moment more together as we sit and enjoy our gift of song.